Keep running close, we're making progress. Explain to people. Come here, I won't lose. Yeah. All right, we got the momentum there, we got the mojo. How we all doing this morning? Morning, information. How we doing? We doing well? We're good. My name is Scott Wolf. I'm the executive director of Grossmark, Rhode Island. And we are very excited about hosting what is going to be a very catalytic, informative, thought-provoking day. And one of the reasons we are very pumped about today is because of you, its audience. There's a great diversity and depth to the audience here. And we also have outstanding speakers from around New England and a national speaker as well. So I think it is going to be a memorable and enjoyable day. One that hopefully will be a catalyst for establishing a state Main Street for Island coordinating program. Yeah. Joining about 40 other states, taking a plunge. And it's inspiring to be hosting a Main Street Revitalization Forum in a revitalized Main Street building. And I'm not a beer drinker, which is not a surprise to me, it's going well. But even though I'm not a beer drinker, I'm a big fan of this building. I've been in it several times. It's not only a great place to have some libation and great conversation, but it's become a warm, inclusive community center under the creative leadership of the Guild team. I want to particularly thank Guild mainstays Jeremy Duffy and Karen Gallagher for extending themselves to make this gathering come together. Are either of them here? If so, why don't you raise your hand? If not, yeah, exactly. Okay. So, in many ways, the evolution and positive community impact of the Guild represents the essence of what Grossmark, Rhode Island has been seeking to accomplish. Believe it or not, for 25 years, and celebrating our 25th anniversary. I didn't get any kind of already, but that's what we've been trying to accomplish for 25 years, we're making some progress, is helping Rhode Island, our quirky, feisty, magical, beautiful, lovable, and occasionally aggravating state, helping this place play to its underappreciated strength through revitalization of our main streets and downtowns, and by increasing opportunities for people to work, live, and play in places that encourage healthy physical, social activity and sustainable, environmentally friendly economic growth. So for our iconic historic main streets and downtowns, in all their dynamic varieties, for us, these iconic main streets and downtowns have the key ingredients to be Rhode Island's economic, social, and cultural engines. And they already are to some extent, but we think the best is ahead with the right ingredients, coordination, with some funding, and with more convenience like this. They also can be the antidote to many of our public health, housing, environmental, and transportation challenges. So a lot of the action is here on Main Street, and a lot of the potential for positive growth and greater opportunity for more Rhode Islanders here on Main Street. So in thinking recently about the assets and the essence of these special places, I decided that blessed with what and I have this kind of idiosyncratic shorthand I like to use for different issues and opportunities. So in this case, I label the attributes of Main Street as the 4 C's, 2 H's, and 1 T. 4 C's, 2 H's, and 1 T. Here are the C's. Charm. Oozing charm. Character. Culture. All the theaters on Main Street, if you think about it around the city. The Odeon Theater in East Greenwich. You've got the Arctic Playhouse in Arctic Village in West Warwick. You've got the Stadium Theater in Woonsocket, and on and on and on. A lot of culture, arts, and celebration of the human spirit happens in Main Street and downtown. So you've got charm, character, culture, commerce. Those are my 4 C's. My 2 H's are history and housing, and my T is transit. There's a lot of work still to be done on all this too. Housing. But our compact, densely developed mixed-use commercial districts are better equipped than almost any other kind of location in Vermont to address these pressing needs and to also deal with Rhode Island's obesity and loneliness epidemics. So, for us, strengthening Main Streets through policies such as the state historic tax credit, complete streets, the municipal infrastructure grant program, and implementation of the state transit master plan. For us, strengthening Main Streets through these and other initiatives is a potent formula for accelerating Rhode Island's recent positive trajectory. At least I perceive there's a positive trajectory in this state I've been living in off and on for 70 years. And I think that our Main Streets are the key to making the high quality of life already enjoyed by some of us available to many more of our fellow members. So that's why we're really pumped and energized about today's gathering and about the multiple and enduring benefits that we are convinced will emerge from a Main Street Rhode Island 4-day program. So I'm about to pass the torch on to several of our other distinguished speakers, but before I do that, including our lieutenant governor, but before I do that, I want to take a minute to salute and thank the businesses and other civic-minded organizations which have stepped up to the plate to sponsor today's program and make it possible. And I want to start with our title sponsor, Rhode Island Energy, which has demonstrated a very strong commitment to the whole Main Street and smart road movement for many years. A precursor of Rhode Island Energy was National Grid, and one of its key executives, Mike Ryan, was our board chair a number of years ago. I believe that there are or expected to be several Rhode Island Energy staff here today: Gerald Ferris, Andrea Mosier, and Marty Siegel. If any of them are here, why don't you raise your hands? And we want to give you a hand. And we really appreciate your leadership support for today's event. I also want to thank our 9 other generous sponsors. And by the way, we gathered these sponsors kind of at the last minute, and we're really pleasantly surprised by how many we were able to gather in a very short period of time. I'm going to acknowledge them in alphabetical order. AARP Rhode Island, a great community partner of ours. Cornish Associates, another terrific partner. These are all terrific partners. GZA, Listen Rhode Island, Park Corporation, Rhode Island Infrastructure Bank, BHP, Weston and Sampson, and Union Studio. So please join me in expressing gratitude for all these organizations. Now, it's my pleasure and my honor to introduce a longtime ally and close friend of Rhode Island, Lieutenant Governor Sabina Matthews. In her role as Lieutenant Governor, we have had the opportunity to collaborate on expanding housing and transportation opportunities for Rhode Islanders. And in her past leadership role, several years ago as President of the Providence City Council, We worked together to develop a strategy for Providence to significantly increase its population in a coordinated way with state government, so that both the state and the city would benefit fiscally and otherwise from growth that makes so much sense in a place like Providence. So Lieutenant Governor, thanks for your continued collaboration, your leadership, your accessibility, as demonstrated by your being here today, and your results-oriented approach to public policy.
Thank you. Good morning. Thank you so much, Scott, for your kind introduction. Really a pleasure to be able to be here with all of you to talk about Main Street and how important it is for America, but also for Rhode Island. As many of you know, I represented the City Council in Providence, the neighborhood of Ponyville, Silver Lane, and also the Valley neighborhood. And you can see in those neighborhoods how the investment in the Main Street has made a huge difference. I'm honored to be able to join all of you here because our Main Streets are the living part of our community, of our cities, the same way how it was in my neighborhood, or they are in my neighborhood of Ponyville, Silver Lake, and Valley. I still cannot get myself away from talking about them as my neighborhood, right? Although I represent the whole state now. But it took a lot of work and a lot of passion, and I'm very happy and proud of the work that has happened. A town with a strong Main Street is a town that has a strong civic life, a strong business community, and a strong future. I'm excited to be here as a partner to small businesses to advocate for greater investment in our Main Street for all the United States and towns here in the state of Rhode Island. This is also will give us a chance to right our wrongs here in Rhode Island. Last week, I had the opportunity and the pleasure to join the Rhode Island Black Heritage Society as they were doing the opening of their gallery exhibit in the State House, which is called A Matter of Truth. And that exhibit highlighted the effects of the 1980s urban redevelopments renewal that happened in our state and how it guided our Main Street. In places like my home neighborhood of Ponyville, and also places like here in Pawtucket, right? You know, Scott was talking about the changes that are happening now. That's why investing in the Main Street is a chance that we have to restore the multicultural, multilingual, and working class neighborhoods that help our state thrive in the 20th century. We can do that again. Let's work together to make Main Street that vibrant, safe, and a strong place for businesses. But as we read it in the paper today, we cannot talk about the Main Street and don't talk about pedestrian safety. More and more our population is aging, and more we have to make sure that we include pedestrian safety in our planning for our communities and our Main Street. I'm looking forward to connecting with, I've been connecting with some of you here, but looking forward to hearing your messages. I know that my office is committed to working with all of you to ensure that the Main Street is a reality in every community of the state, and cities and towns of Rhode Island. Thank you so much.
Great to have a strong friend and savvy friend in high place. Thank you so much for getting over. I'm now proud and privileged to introduce and salute one of my key kindred spirits and colleagues at Gross Smart Rhode Island, our Special Projects Director, Jillian Fick. While we wouldn't be here today without our sponsors and without the Guild, we also definitely wouldn't be here without Jillian. Without her tenacity, her vision, and her excellent communications, organizing, and coordinating skills. Before joining Gross Smart Rhode Island several years ago, she honed these skills as a planner for the city of Central Falls, and is the organizer, director of the Three Community Main Street Revitalization Project, in the Lower Blackstone Valley, known as the Broad Street Initiative. Maybe it's called something a little different, but with her missionary zeal and dogged determination, Jillian has been analyzing and promoting for years the benefits of stronger local Main Street groups, especially for the social, economic, environmental, and health advancement of our residents. She's been equally energetic and purposeful in promoting the key role that a Main Street coordinating program can play in offering the technical and organizational development assistance and exchange of ideas and best practices that can scale up our local Main Street organizations and their commercial districts, and do so in a way that enhances their charm and pizzazz, as well as their profitability. So Jillian is going to be our moderator and our master of ceremonies for today. You won't have to deal with me much longer. And Jillian, thanks a lot for getting us to this point and for leading us through what I'm confident is going to be a very exciting and catalytic.
We've got what you call tenacity. I think other people might also call stubbornness, but it's okay. If I have been talking about this like a low broken record for the past 2-3 years, it's because I truly believe in this program and what it can do for Rhode Island, place that I love so much. I've had an awful lot of conversations about this, and to be honest, it's been really challenging. I think a lot of people have a hard time understanding it, and I think it's probably okay because we haven't had Main Street program in Rhode Island really. Well, other states have for up to 40 years. So, so we haven't even really had anything like this. We try to give it a comparable example. So it's new. So that's all right. And I thought, you know, we could hear me talk about it, but what would be better would be to show you, not telling you. So, and who better to show you than some great neighbors from around New England who have been doing this work at the local level, the state level, and being able to really see the impact to local communities and also to their state, and across the country for literally decades. So, so I'm so happy to have our fantastic panel of speakers here today, and I'm so happy that all of you are here to take you. So, yeah, it's our first meeting of our Main Street Rhode Island Network. So, new logistics. So first, fire exit, like an airplane or a back. But if it's a true emergency, the staff will open that big garage door in the back, so we'll just elevate that way. Bathrooms are right here. We are recording this session, so you can be made available afterwards for you to share with all of your friends. When you walk in, you should have received a program. If not, you can grab one during the break, but there's a QR code that will take you to a PDF of the bios for our speakers. You want to, kill trees to put them, like you can ask us all. You also should have received a survey, and again, I'll implore you to pick one up during the break if you don't have one, because I'm going to want that back, but I'll get to that later. Also, you should have received a green lunch ticket if you ordered lunch. If not, you can stand and break, check in at the desk at the front. And the agenda, this is on the program. Basically, we're going to have speakers here in the morning. We'll do our keynote first. I'll say a few words, then we'll have a 10-minute break. Then we'll have panelists, and then some discussion before lunch, which will be from 12 to 1 over in the beer hall, which is probably the building you walked through. At 1 o'clock, we'll reconvene here for a workshop on Main Street America's 4-point approach. And then between 3 and 3:30, when we finish up, we will convene over back to the beer hall for those that would like to stay and network and enjoy the guild and all that stuff. So I reiterate, thank you to our sponsors and the guild for hosting us, and also to Lieutenant Governor being here today. if we had a few, other elections that, have registered, they're here, Jennifer Pino, Jennifer Stewart, representative from Kentucky, Garrett Rantieri, who's from, the city of Woonsocket. So thank you all for being here. I know we also have some members of various boards and commissions, planning, zoning board, and folks of it. But, lastly, I want to acknowledge a few members of our Main Street Rhode Island steering committee. Back in 2022, we convened with small groups to help us, get this started. Roberta Croce from State Life Planning should be here. Paul Trudeau from Rhode Island. Joanna Waldeck from the City of East Providence. Marta Martinez from Rhode Island Latino Art. The Downtown Woonsocket Collaborative, Garrett and Mary and Adam. Jesse Ernster from the City of Providence. Steve Mansfield from the Blackstone Valley Tourism Council. Dave Gold and Dave. So thank you to, there's a few other folks that can join us today, but thank you to all of them for all of you. And last but not least, a member of our steering committee that has been a member before we started, and represents really, really great partner here in the state of Rhode Island, Commerce Rhode Island. So please welcome, the Chief Strategy Officer, Danielle Pierce.
Thanks to Satchel and the entire Earth Park team for putting this on, to the governor and all of our electeds, for being here and for pushing this work. And for the Earth Park team, your continued support and our Main Street Steering Committee for Rhode Island's commercial districts, the expansion of healthy environment, small business throughout the state. It's a pleasure to be here with you all today. I also want to give thanks and regards from our Superior Commerce, who had another engagement responsibility, but sent her best and ask for notes during the day. Over the past 8 months, Rhode Island Commerce has been engaged in economic development planning process, and much of what has been discussed during our session will be discussed today ties directly to that plan. Specifically, the plan and the state are focused on the strength of our small businesses across all industries, which comprise 98% of our state's businesses. The strong sense of place that we continue to create within the state to ensure that workers and families enjoy where they are living and want to come to Rhode Island and stay in Rhode Island. The way these two important aspects of economic development is sort of resilience, as well as healthy and happy living and placemaking interact with each other. Today's program hits on each of these elements, and we're excited to learn more from presenters from Maine, Connecticut, Vermont, Boston, and others today about the work that they are doing to advance these efforts. But I also want to share a bit more about what's happening in Rhode Island. In Rhode Island, we've run a Main Street Revitalization Grants program since 2016. These grants are provided to municipalities and agencies to help fuel economic development on our main streets and our commercial districts across the state, and range from providing support for signage, public art, seating, facade improvements, bike racks, sidewalks, lighting, bus shelters, and a host of other important efforts. All in all, we've deployed nearly $2 million to municipalities and awarded close to $5 million through the state through this grant program. The program is continuing, and another grant application round will open very soon, so stay tuned for that. And if you're in Rhode Island, which many of you are, but I know, we can talk more about that later today during the break, or visit the commerceRIA.com website to learn more. We provide funding like this to help stimulate economic development in our municipalities, because when these commercial areas look better, they're more inviting and comfortable to businesses, residents, and visitors. I'd also like to mention that we've recently announced more than over $650,000 in Center Amos Awards, which often overlap with our Main Streets projects, including improvements to Baldwin's Wharf in Newport and efforts down in Narragansett. And finally, we've been targeting the NRC awards for small businesses in Main Street throughout the pandemic. We want to keep that going as we move forward. We deployed over $4 million to Take It Outside grant program to help diners al fresco and businesses that work outside. We deployed an additional $16 million to the park grant program for arts, culture, organizations to expand public art, including some really great mural that is right downtown Kentucky here, the part of the Kentucky Foundation. Lighting, including the precursor to the 3 nights of lights that the Providence Warwick CBD just announced yesterday, that will happen during the holiday time down in Providence, and events generally that build a sense of place. And we're leveraging much of our state's allocation for the Economic Development Administration's Tourism, Travel, and Outdoor Recreation grant we received during the pandemic as well, to deploy 2 rounds of place-based events to drive more local regional tourism on our main streets as well. The first round programming is happening in Macon Hill, C2, for more on the second round programming. This needs to be, and it's a holistic approach, and bring up 3 very different programs, Main Street Site Readiness and arts and culture grants, because you see how these all tie in directly together. So again, thank you all for coming, for being a part of this, sharing important conversation and ideation as we contemplate how to best employ these holistic strategies. Especially it's that as we say and sit, and one example of a space revitalized within our state. Enjoy the day.
All right, thank you so much, Daniela and Thomas for that. So now it's going to be great pleasure to introduce you to our keynote speaker. So Delilah Kapoor joins us from Biddeford, Maine, where she is the executive director. It's been almost 13 years. Yeah. It's an organization that serves her community, means local Main Street program. And I'm not going to give away any spoilers about her presentation, but when I heard her story, I was really struck by the similarities between their community and lots of communities here in Rhode Island. So I felt like it's an especially inspiring story for us to start with, especially because they're one of the only recent communities to have won Main Street America's Great American Main Street Award, which, if you don't know, is very independent. So they are cheers groups got an event too. So excited to hear from them. So anyway. This is a right vision for us of what we could be maybe just sort of 10 or 12 years like the vision itself. Welcome to Harvard. Thank you. Technology. Good morning. Thank you so much for having me here. I loved getting to talk with you during the coffee time, and Rhode Islanders are at least as friendly as me. Technology works. This is the place that I live and work. Biddeford, Maine. Now, point it. There we go. There are over 1 million square feet of mill buildings right on our main street. It's a mill town. And you can see from the picture that, the past picture that our mill town is right on the Saco River. And the Secaucus people have lived there for 13,000 years. It's a place that drew settlers who were loggers and then industrialists who created textiles. You can see in these pictures that the textile workers filled these vast spaces, and they were from all over the world, not French Canada. And also at one point in the employee entrances, there were 26 flags representing all of the countries that people working in the mills. There were 3 shifts of workers who would come out from the mills and fill the main streets.
It was a place to be on Friday night. They had some traffic, cops just for all the pedestrian traffic. And, starting in the 50s, jobs began to move to the south. And by the 1980s, malls came and vacancies started to happen on Main Street. And instead of bustling full places for some decades, there was decline, mill closures, job losses, and people with a lot of discouragement. Many people in Biddeford who'd come there, leaving families behind, leaving cultures behind, felt a lot of discouragement and maybe a sense of being used and feeling stressful. And the blight that grew throughout the downtown was really a symbol of discouragement that people felt in this good city with people. And it may have influenced some interesting economic decisions. In the 1980s, there was an idea came forward to put a trash incinerator on the river in the center of the downtown. That the trash would be turned to energy and help fuel the mill buildings, and that there wouldn't be any smell, and the trash trucks coming in wouldn't be a problem or too noisy. I don't know about that way, but it was smelly and challenging, and in fact, really keeps any future development from happening in the downtown after that. And Biddeford would be called Trash Town from then on in 1980. So kids growing up in high school, the perfect thing you could throw across the gym at your basketball rivals was to call them Trash Town. And having been a city that was where the workers lived, half of our housing is workforce housing, it's rentals. We were the working town, and across the river was where the mill managers and owners lived over in Saco. And so these closures, these trash town only added to the tensions between the communities and that sense of we don't matter. And this is the context of Biddeford. I'll just share it with you. Place-based development starts with context, with the place, with the history. There were attempts by many groups to revitalize the downtown, but it was in 2000, the mayor at the time gathered a group of leaders, and they looked at different methods for how change can happen. And they chose a program aimed at getting everyone around the table, working together toward a common vision with the hope of unleashing a lot of initiatives. And Heart of Biddeford was launched in 2004. I didn't start in the position then. It had been around for 6 years when I started. And I've been the director there at Jillian for 13 years. We are part of Main Street America, the national. That's about historic preservation or place-based economics. And they developed this 4-point approach, this proven method. And so whether or not you have 4 committees or just focus on these 4 areas, Kathy will plan to be speaking about this very fully this afternoon. But you have to look at economic vitality, design, organization, and promotion in order to have a comprehensive program. And each Main Street, each state requires a coordinating program. We have a main downtown center. And they do great work with training us, keeping in touch with national issues and trends, and also they often win federal grants. So I would have to, and then they pass along funds. And I much prefer the very short forms that they do instead of the federal grant reports. For Heart of Biddeford, what we did was work on developing a sense of place. And I want to give some examples over the next few minutes about that place-keeping work that we did and how that set a stage for sustainable economic development. I realize as I do it, there's 100 other stories I want to tell as well, but I'm going to keep it shorter. And there's a lot of ways that I'm not even going to be able to go into about the role city plays, the role developers play. So please feel free to ask about those during the Q&A, but I'll try to remember to leave those in as well. But Our group started with very doable things, the promotion committee that could put on events like trick or treat, very easy way to get 800 kids to show up, have candy, and downtown holiday fest. Our design committee got the artists involved right away, so having a chalk festival. Our economic vitality group encouraged pop-ups in the 27 vacancies that we had on Main Street in 2011. We put together a Facebook campaign, downtown Biddeford seeks long-term relationship with coffee shop. Got a little bit of interest, a few bites that lays the groundwork for the next project. But a lot of these are that sort of can do, let's try something. You know, like what was the TV show with the kids? Say it again. Would way before about the builder. Also. And the fourth point in the 4-point approach is the organization committee. And I think this is where we had the most opportunity for catalytic change. We took on a heart and soul community engagement process. And we were finally able to get large numbers of people around the table. And I mean, literally in church basements and people's living rooms and the community center, asking people what matters most to you and what do you never want to lose about this place. We had 36 of those meetings, and then we also had several other initiatives like listening circles, story circles at festivals. What do you remember about festivals in the past that were important to you? We had high schoolers interviewing their grandparents and hearing those stories about all those immigration stories about coming to work in the mills. And these students realized that they had not always been trash town. And the students started to feel more pride about the place they came from because they heard from their parents about what it was like to be from Biddeford. We developed a set of values that came out of all those meetings, what matters most to you, a vision statement, as well as a large master planning document with tons of very specific objectives. And that guided our behavior for about 6 years. And I will tell you, over those 6 years, we completed 80% of the projects in there through all kinds of partnerships, made us much more eligible to make grants for our organization as well as for the city, having that community created document. And it also helped us get these very gnarly issues like the trash incinerator in the downtown. Seems kind of easy if I told you it smells, trucks, all that, why not get rid of it? Well, when your downtown is decimated and empty, 27 vacancies, and you have the highest taxpayer in town with 80 good jobs, it's very hard to convince people that it'd be a good idea to spend $6 million to get rid of it. But after all that engagement work, storytelling, visioning, there was a forum we had to hold it at City Theater because it was so large with the City Council. And Mike Riley, owner of the Riley's Bakery, he's the third generation, stood up to the mic and said, something is wrong if I can't sell donuts. And they have very good donuts. And they believed him, but didn't know if it was time to take the risk. And he said, it is the time. We've got all these people are committed. We have visions for what we can be. We have to take this leap. And so the city did vote to spend $6 million to close the trash incinerator. And some of them lost their seats on the council because it was still considered so controversial. But the idea was that we would more than make up that tax loss and that we would more than make up that job loss. But yet it was still just Ridge and Cove and a bunch of very large organizations saying, we want this. We want a downtown that values our history, that's good for families, that values diversity, and we can make it come back. So with that document in hand, we were able to win more grants and inspire more partnerships. We did a Main Street Challenge business competition with a $20,000 incentive package. And in 2011, that sounded like more money than it does now. So we get to gas. But we had a coffee shop who had seen our Facebook pages 2 years earlier. They applied and opened a coffee shop, camp room, bookstore, and also a vegetarian restaurant. And, you know, we advertised that good news in Maine Biz and other newspapers, got a lot of press and articles for it. So entrepreneurs started coming to Biddeford. And one day, two guys were sitting at the bar there at Elements, and Michael said, what are you doing? And we heard this might be a place to open a business. He said, go talk to Delilah. And that became a very common phrase. And I showed them around the downtown. There were 27 bases to consider. And showed them big spaces. They had a vision, you know, of a 60-seat restaurant. But let's just put on this one street. There's this really cool place to stay in Palestine. And in a week later, there was an article in the Portland Press Herald that Mike and Chad, Greg and Chad had purchased, actually leased this building to open Callus Diner. And they said, we got more done in 2 hours in Biddeford than we did in 2 months in Portland. Look at that, look at our wall. Anytime we do like the biggest Portland. And if you go down to TV, you see that as the top 50 restaurants in the country. And that just brought more restaurants. We were able to use transformation strategies that Kathy will probably also talk about later to amplify that aspect of the restaurant scene in the building. With more partners coming in, a phrase I learned early in the position was that economic development is always preceded by community development. So I'll show you some of the kind of event success that we had. And it was, these were our anchors. We didn't have an anchor store at that point. Our events were our anchors, and we started to draw, you know, like a church wanted to participate with us, and they had all kinds of construction workers. So we built a giant sledding hill in the middle of the downtown in January. And the businesses that were there finally had a little business in January. Our River Jam Festival went from 500 to 3,000. And we became a hub for people's ideas. The veterans organizations were no longer able to organize the Veterans Memorial Day groups. They came to us and could you take that on? And we said, as long as you keep advising us on when the flag goes up and when it's halfway down, then we say yes to that, and they have. And, you know, the adult education program contacted us about new Mainers wanting to bring cultural cuisine to all of our events. We're very connected with English language learners, multi-language learners. We camped out at the lunchrooms in the high school and asked them for a couple of weeks, what do you want to see happen events downtown? Because you can't plan things for high schoolers. They need to be in charge of it. And they said, of course, shut down Main Street because we want to teach everybody how to do K-pop dancing. Yeah. We partnered with the synagogue and have a menorah as well as a downtown Christmas tree. LGBTQ students raised the pride flag in June. A barista at my favorite coffee shop turns out is a serious hip-hop artist. So we invited him to perform in the Fringe Festival. About getting everybody together, being a hub, hearing somebody's passion or talent and connecting them with somebody else. And all of that connecting really came into play in 2018 when Partners with Preservation had a $150,000 grant contest for preserving an iconic building here downtown, historic building. And our clock tower had worked for several decades, and it was sitting up there on City Hall looking very sad. And we told a story called It's Our Time. And in the video that we had, you know, one of the mill workers who was the union president said, it's our time. You know, Mike Riley's family said, it's our time. The Bangladeshi valedictorian at the high school said, it's our time. We showed that by hour, we mean everybody. And everybody, you know,
bit on that. And we ended up eating, Boston, Nashville, and stuff. Wouldn't be important. And, more importantly than $150,000, which was, fixed the clock and got it working, the city was able to put out a bond for $12 million that they tried to have 2 other times. But it wasn't until we've done this campaign that people understood that when your iconic building in the center of your downtown is cared for as a symbol that you want to care for your whole community. And so finally that bond passed for this spring, the whole city hall, sprinklers and just looking at those and, and new windows and, preserve this iconic. But it took until people understood that this was they were part of something bigger. All through this, we've stayed in contact and connection with business owners, finding out what they need. Mostly they want to hear from each other. So we have an entrepreneurs group. We've had a women's business owner meetup, as well as an entrepreneurship week. So there's a lot of sharing of resources. We have worked to be a very trusted source of information and communication with a very consistent tone. And, when Facebook got really ugly, we never, our website, our Facebook page never got good at that, and just kept a consistent message about inclusion, welcoming, wanting to hear from people, and not making it a place where anybody felt excluded, and very active social media. And so when crisis did strike in 2020, our voice was very respected right away. Had newsletters coming out. We didn't have to do some of those things that larger organizations or municipalities have to do about running everything by everybody, which is very important in some circumstances. But in ours, being quick to respond, be able to say we're all through with you. Let's work together. And our banner across Main Street said moving at the speed of safety. So communicating that when we take care of this place and take care of each other, we'll weather the crisis. A few weeks later, the restaurants were able to slightly open again. And one morning, I put a Facebook fundraising campaign out with a goal of $2,000, and we raised $14,000 by 2 in the afternoon. And we were able to buy meals for 6 weeks from the downtown restaurants and deliver them to different frontline workers, at the hospital departments or police and fire. And, those community was happy to be able to do something and respond. And the folks who were frontline workers got a little boost of morale, a sense of care for people. And then they also became bigger fans of the downtown. We were able to be responsive to small businesses and open up a midtown court. And we were able to respond to the disparate impacts on Black business owners it made. COVID hit the Black community in a different way, and so we did targeted marketing program with those Black business owners in the downtown. And as businesses started opening up, design the committee coming back into action, design beautiful open flags, and we got those up all over the downtown to communicate how much everybody is working together in making this community open again. I do want to mention that our efforts have not succeeded in making Main Street for everyone, but these were both photos in recent articles about people who are, unhoused in the downtown, other crises. And what we try to do is be part of the ecosystem addressing it. We are not going to become a food pantry, but again, being a live organization, when COVID hit, and the food shelves from the state, when they could get food down, we had the resources to get volunteers to drive up there and be part of it. Once a year, we hold a community super where 5th graders make ceramic bowls, the restaurants donate soup, and then all of the proceeds from that go to our food program. And that's just part of being at the table. We're part of the Homelessness Coalition, the New Mayor Welcoming Group, and other groups that are just part of ensuring that everybody's thought about, but we're not always in the head of it, but we're there at the table. I'm happy to say that Rising Bakery did weather that storm of COVID and other hardship, and they're on their fourth generation owner now. And it really, ticked up their Instagram, look, beautiful donuts and, decorations and next to them, and the other picture is New Morning Natural Foods that's been around for 50 years. So the first thing you want to be able to say when you're attracting new businesses is that you support your existing businesses and they are thriving, and happy to say that that is happening in the city. And during, it's done. I will just say that 7 businesses, retail businesses opened during COVID in downtown, so our shopping scene is increasing. When Jillian gets it up, you'll see that we have, a lot of press coming to Biddeford, featuring the restaurants, the breweries, and the coffee roasters. Very good, retail. And a lot of other press coming. Biddeford is now Maine's youngest city, with 29 being our median age in the downtown and 34 throughout the city. And I think Maine is the oldest state in the country, so it's a big deal to be attracting people back to Biddeford. We grew up here, or in Maine, we're attracting people from out of state. We didn't pay Paradise to put up a parking lot, but we did pay the Brownfield site and put up a parking lot. And that has made it more possible for the rest of the mills to be fully utilized, including not a fancy hotel, but a great hotel with boutique bedrooms. And on the roof, what's on the roof? Do you know the rest of the song? A swinging hotspot with a pool. There are 500 housing units that have been added to the downtown since 2008, primarily in the mill building, but also on second and third floors, and more are in the works. Our map that we update every half a year is now has 25 retail shops and over 55 food-related businesses in the downtown. We only have 2 vacancies, and they're the largest buildings that are kind of cooking up bigger projects. And the value, the assessed value has risen dramatically. A huge increase in the tax base that affects homeowners' taxes. And just this summer, an arts organization partnered with us, and we were able to invite a group called Bandolin to come dance in Biddeford. And what they did first was listen to stories of people about their stories of textiles and fabrics in honor of Biddeford's history. And then they danced on the side of the building, weaving materials and fabrics together. It's an amazing place to live in Biddeford now. And, as mentioned earlier, urban renewal was about becoming any place. And revitalization is about becoming more of who you are, a place of keeping, actually. I think it's authentic, attractive, and it makes for a place you want to be part of and invest in and make better and make more welcoming for others to join. In Biddeford, we started with a place and the people who made that place. We listened to people, involved them, and responded to their needs. It's been about trying something and building on what works, connecting business owners, providing them with forums for learning. It requires coordination and trustworthy communication, and finally, holding out a vision of making Main Street a place for everyone. Thank you. Yeah, I don't know, it's inspirational for you too, is to see what's possible within sort of this plan. Now we turn our attention to the how, right? We don't have to reinvent the wheel, we don't have to do it all alone. And the theme of being stronger together and about our network here in Rhode Island, being able to connect the national network that exists. Of people doing this all over the country for 40 years. I'm pleased to invite Main Street America, speech for a moment. And I'm sure some of you might think that you know Main Street America, but they have been around for so long. But I promise you that today's Main Street America, not your parents' Main Street America. So I'm very pleased to introduce their Senior Director for Coordinating Programs, Catherine Vermont.
Thank you. It's great to be back in Rhode Island. I don't know if this is, maybe my 7th, 8th trip. Counting the time when I was the New Hampshire Main Street Coordinator and came down to work with some of the communities back then. I want to talk a little bit about the history of the program is why communities need to look at Main Street for help, or what prompted all these communities to say we really needed some help. And can I change how the remote? I brought my own. I don't think it's get the words better. I'll let others use it as well. No, it's not. So what happened to our communities back in the 60s and 70s is there was a lot of disinvestment in our districts, both from the public and private sectors. And also, gosh, it's not. Nothing's working. You have the remote, also our historic buildings were being neglected, because things were leaving our communities. We also had vacancies, and we have a lot of absentee property owners in our downtowns. We had a loss of retail within all our Main Street districts. They started leaving our downtowns. There was apathy. I think we saw the example in Biddeford. You know, people felt like it was not the best place to be. And we just lost the sense of vibrancy in our Main Street districts. You know, what prompted that? There were changes in transportation issues. This is the ribbon cutting for I-94 in Wisconsin, where even though I've been in New Hampshire 27 years, I retained my Wisconsin accent. But this is I-94 in Wisconsin with this asphalt and this concrete. And that challenged us as well for our commercial districts because our main streets were being bypassed, and our main streets continue to be bypassed, but we have some advantage there in that, yeah, we're being bypassed, but people can get to our communities easier from further away. So we have some potential to have that. And then, you know, we had strip centers, we had shopping malls. That's what took all our retail away. We had big box retailers. We had just a plethora of retail that was not in our downtowns. We were sprawling, you know, that's where smart growth, you know, came, is that our cities kept sprawling. We kept spending more and more money, going further out, needing more services, maintaining more sewer lines, pipelines, etc. And so, you know, we had all those competitions in the 60s and the 70s, and then along came Amazon, which also impacted a lot of our communities. So what happened, you know, in our current downtowns was really sort of this, or what happened back then was our downtowns tried to modernize. They said, well, if we look like strip centers, if we look like shopping malls, you know, that'll save us. And it really didn't. So one of the things that many Main Street programs
happened to have to do with when this modernization happened. We needed to remove those materials. So we were trying to modernize those businesses, but if you see this building here, it really rendered those upper stories useless, except for anything but storage. Nobody's gonna have an office up there behind that vinyl or aluminum siding, and nobody's gonna live up there, as well. So, this is what we started doing on Main Street. Communities called, you know, back in the sixties and seventies, when all our retail left, our buildings were in such terrible state. People called our parent organization, the National Trust for Historic Preservation, and said, help us save these buildings. We realized, well, you can't just, you know, rehab that historic theater and then everything will be well in downtown. We had to come up with an approach that was balanced, and Delilah talked a bit about that. But who would have thought that putting that vinyl covering on this building was a good idea? When that gorgeous building was behind it. They actually became the first internet company went into this building when it was done. Alterations and new uses changed in our downtown as we lost that retail. This is a bank building. That became that. So who thought that was a good idea? And yes, it is the same building. But we started destroying the things that make your communities most unique, which are those historic buildings. And so it's hard to believe why they would have done that. This was the fate of that building over time. It turns out that those panels that they attached to the wall, the person who did it wanted to do it quick and cheap, and they used an air hammer. And so when they attached it, it blew the face off the bricks. So there was no way to remove those panels without, you know, the brick behind it was simply destroyed. The good news is there's a boutique hotel on this site now. So those things can happen. Other bad things happened in our downtowns because many of our buildings were not sprinkled. They're old, they're wood frame. So we lost many buildings to fires. This particular property was underinsured by the property owner. So when it happened, the highest interest in it was for Taco Bell and a gas station. This is the 100% corner in this community, which is not appropriate for a Taco Bell or a gas station. And so Main Street went to the city and actually asked the city to purchase the lot to protect it from this development. How many of your cities would buy lots to protect it from this development? So what happened was there was an economic impact study done. And said, okay, if a Taco Bell comes in, that property is going to be worth about $250,000 on the tax roll. But if you wait to have a building go back on that site that is similar to the one that you lost in the fire, it's going to be worth over $2 million, probably $3 million. And when you look at the long-term payout of that for the community, it made sense for the city to buy this lot and protect it until the right development happened. And so we also, a design was also done for what that building should look like. And rather than a Taco Bell or a gas station, this is the building that went back on that site. It didn't happen as fast as the city wanted it to happen. It took 12 years for that project to happen. But actually the people who own the business right next door were the ones who actually developed this property. And then you probably have some buildings that have been vacant for 25 years or more in your districts. This one in its current state was appraised at $50,000. It had been an old shoe factory building. It had historic elements removed. You can see they blocked up some of the windows. They knocked over the stone sills in the building. It was also in the floodplain. There's a river right across the street. And the county, who actually could take it back, they hadn't, but they could take it back, said if Main Street didn't do something with this building, they were going to tear it down. Well, it's in the floodplain. You tear it down, there's not gonna be another building ever to be built on this site. And now the county, you're gonna have a park or a parking lot to maintain for all eternity because this big historic building had been lost. So the developer for this project actually came to the community because he knew it was a Main Street community and Main Street would help him get through the development process. And as a matter of fact, that was needed. $100,000 was loaned to the developer from the Main Street program. Main Street helped with their tax credit application. It was a federal rehab tax credit. And at one point had to fight the Department of Natural Resources. Because of it being in the floodway, the DNR said, well, you have to jackhammer the floor out of the basement. Because then water could flow better. Well, that added $80,000 to the cost of the project. And that was gonna kill the project. And so, along with Main Street and the city said, we're gonna ignore the The building is currently assessed at $1.5 million and is 28 apartment units, called the Shoe Factory Apartments. So those are some of the success stories that are out there. All of those projects that you just saw were projects that happened in the community. I was the Main Street Executive Director in Chippewa Falls, Wisconsin. And like Delilah, we were Great American Main Street Award-winning community back in 1996. So I've been doing this a really long time. This is like my 34th year in Main Street. So we responded, Main Street came along because of things like that are happening in our communities. So back in 1977, after lots of communities called the National Trust and said, help us save these buildings, they realized it was more than just, we can't just put up historic light poles and downtown will be fixed. We can't just rehab that theater and everything will be well. We had to make it economically viable. We had to offer incentives. We had to do the things that Biddeford did, which is bring people together to say, if we're gonna make a change here, it has to come from us. We have to find the resources in our communities. So right now, the National Main Street Center is a subsidiary of the National Trust. In 2013, we drove off to be our own 501c3 organization. And Delilah mentioned some of the grant programs that we have available. I am going to share a little bit on that. So we're a national nonprofit. We have about 45 employees that are spread out in about 20 states across the country. I still live in New Hampshire. And we have lots of staff around the country that have different skill sets. But we really try to work hard on raising the visibility of Main Street across the country. So Main Street is really a movement. Main Street has been helping communities revitalize their downtowns for 45 years. We believe we are the leading voice for downtown revitalization and historic preservation within our districts. We're made up of small towns. The smallest town I've worked in was Lake City, Colorado, about 400 people. And the biggest would be Portland, Oregon. Of course, Boston is in our program as well. But this program works on all scales. Doing what you can in your community. So we believe working together, we can make significant changes in our Main Street. We have some ground rules for Main Street. These are really important for me to emphasize so you get an understanding about what Main Street is. But Main Street is about historic preservation. It's probably the greatest asset any of your communities have are the historic buildings that make up your district. But also more importantly, I'd say is Main Street is economic development. Main Street is an economic development program that uses historic preservation as its primary tool. We're about job creation, reinvestment by the public and private sector, just really moving that economic needle to the positive, just as you heard with the Biddeford story as well. Main Street drives overall economic development. You know, we ask communities to tell us, what's the boundary you're gonna work on in your downtown? And then people say, well, why should the city be giving money just to those people? Well, because what happens in downtown impacts your entire community. And the story I'll tell is, Chippewa Falls is the home of Line and Kugel beer. Anybody drinks Line and Kugel's, but it's available everywhere now. But it was also home to Cray Research. They made the fastest computers in the world. And in the same year, I got a call from the vice president at our hospital and one of the vice presidents at Cray Research. And they said, Kathy, you know, we never used to bring anybody downtown that we were recruiting doctors, engineers. We were afraid if they saw how bad downtown was, they would choose either not to come and work for us, or if they did, they'd go live someplace else. But 3 years into our program, they said, the first place we bring people is to downtown. There's a huge impact for us to sell the quality of life in our communities. Another example was our holiday parade. In 1989, which is when I started, we did a Bridge to Wonderland lighted parade, the first Saturday of December. And McDonald's, located 4 to 5 miles out of town, called me the next day and said, please do that again. Because people had to wait 45 minutes just to get a cup of coffee at McDonald's. So what we do in downtown impacts the whole community. When downtown is vibrant, people's home values rise, corporations want to go in, and that's why we work on our downtown. Main Street is not a merchants association. That is something people have to understand right off the bat. It is not just for the benefit of business and property owners in that district. It is much bigger than that. We're going to talk about the 4 points this afternoon. And Main Street is community driven. As much as advice and visits I do to communities all over the country, you're the ones that have to roll up the sleeves in your communities to get the work done. And Main Street is not a project. We have 45-year-old Main Street programs in the country. Things change. Things continue to change. Retail left, retail's coming back. Banks are leaving and new opportunities are coming in. A lot of places are doing small scale manufacturing in our downtowns now. So we have to look at really the long-term plan for Main Street. So again, what happened to our downtown? Bad things happen to good buildings. And yet, you know, we can look at something like that and say, well, thank you to the property owner who came in and tried to bring this property back to life. But good people, you know, saw that opportunity to bring those buildings back. Investments increased in all of our communities with Main Street programs. Up in New Hampshire, I brought 23 cities into the Main Street program. 2 of them won the Great American Main Street Award. If you get up there, visit Milford and Littleton. They're special places. This project is until, again, there was nothing going on with the 1875 until the Main Street program came along and gave that community confidence. Just like that housing developer that came to Chippewa Falls, he came because we were a Main Street program, and he knew that we would help him get through the process. And for anybody to make investments in a downtown, they have to see that both the state and the city and everybody is willing to make that investment. So we give people the confidence to make those investments in their communities. You know, who wants to invest in this building? So I mean, you can see right through it. You know, there's not, this is the other side of it. These 2 buildings. You know, somebody has to have a really good vision to say, gosh, you know, maybe we could do something with this. But in how many of your communities with your cities have said, well, let's just tear it down and make it for 15 years? Yeah, a lot of head nodding. This is what these 2 buildings look like today. This was the Littleton Grist Mill, and also next door is an office building and restaurant. It has a double deck facing the Ammonoosuc River, and a huge effort. One of the reasons they won the Great American Main Street Award. It operated as a grist mill for a few years, and now I think it's a brew pub there as well. We also had Meredith, New Hampshire, they were striving, and I use that, quintessential New England town, but they really wanted to protect the things that were going on there, and then they got this gas station in downtown, which didn't say quintessential New England. And so the developer who, did 2 ends actually tore it down and rebuilt this as an appropriate gas station for Meredith, New Hampshire. It's got wide plank floors, and then a screen door when you go in, there's a fire truck on display. Now, who would tear down a gas station just to make it look like this, if they didn't think that that was what attracted people, to their community? As I said, there are 4 historic inns in Meredith. One was an old asbestos factory. And then, they have a nice fundraising mechanism for their Main Street program there. It's at those 4 inns. They charge a $3 voluntary per night fee that goes directly to their Main Street program. And they raise about $30,000 a year through that voluntary. Most, you can ask for it to be removed, but they said hardly anybody does that. So we always contend that the greenest building is the one that already exists. We should really be thinking about our opportunities here and not say because it's vacant or because it looks old that it's disposable and we should get rid of it. That the greenest building is already built, just the energy that went into making places like this, to tear it down and start all over just does not make sense. So that's just some stats there. I want to talk about our network of coordinating programs across the country. This is our map. You can see the states that do not have Main Street programs. Rhode Island is one of them. And I'm sad to say New Hampshire, with funding their statewide program, but I'm working on New Hampshire as well. But the Dakotas, Arizona, New York, Hawaii, and Alaska are the states that we're working with to get them into the Main Street program. So our statewide coordinating programs across the country are different models. Most are housed within state government. But we also have 28% of our programs are nonprofit programs. Each of our nonprofit programs does receive state funding, anywhere from $300,000 to $1 million. The state of Alabama this year just got $1 million to run their statewide Main Street program. So we have to find the funding here in Rhode Island to get your program up and running. And this is sort of the model that we have. We have our local programs, our big base at the bottom, and then come the coordinating programs. We have Main Street America, and then we have our Main Street America Board of Directors. That's sort of the flow of how we all work together. We have licensing agreements for our Main Street programs to use the Main Street America brand, and our coordinating programs deliver that to communities. So our coordinating programs manage those licensing agreements with Main Street, local Main Street programs. They have a partner membership with us, to get a full set of services from us to help run a better coordinating program. And once you are designated as a Main Street coordinating program, you get the authority to make which communities are designated as Main Street. And then we deliver a lot of services, just as I said, to our coordinating programs. And we have coordinating program guidelines. We want to make sure that when our coordinating programs start, that they demonstrate leadership in the state, that they work effectively with the local coordinating programs, that they maintain that strong preservation ethic, that they retain experienced and professional staff who will be on-site in state to work with all the Main Street programs. They're the liaison to Main Street America, and they must maintain minimum funding levels. And that's what we're here to kind of talk about, think about, is we have minimum levels for coordinating programs to start in the range of $150,000 to $250,000 a year. Main Street is widely successful. We know it. Many of our states do different studies on their impact. This was one that was done by John Stover and Associates out of DC, and he looked at the Washington, Oklahoma, Pennsylvania, Boston programs. And in every category, those communities engaged in Main Street were producing more economic benefit to the state in the job creation, revenue creation, sales tax collections, property values, and other areas in the state. And I can, Jillian can point you to any of those reports as well. And then locally, this is how Main Street programs are organized. You know, we have a board of directors, you have to have a staff person locally, and then each of the programs has the 4 committees of Main Street. We're gonna go through that training this afternoon, but the board sets that strategic direction. The executive director helps manage that, implement it, and then the committees develop the work. Some of the benefits of being part of the Main Street America Network are your access to grants, and different programs we have. As Lila mentioned, you know, it's nicer to fill out our little 1-pager grant applications than to apply for federal funding on your own. But we have some grant programs that have been going on for several years, actually. T-Mobile is giving away $50,000 placemaking grants. American Express does inclusive backing grants to support minority-owned businesses. And we just announced a GM $50,000 grant program as well. So we're always rolling out new programs. So we did have we also work with GoDaddy. We do a lot of training for small businesses, grow with Google. And then as I mentioned, we have the GM grants as well. We have just so many resources available to both communities and our coordinating programs on a national level, from books, publications, studies, being part of our listserv, training materials. We do a national conference every year, etc. We have a research team. We have an advocacy team that has a Hill Day in DC every year, really speaking up for you and what you need to get done in your Main Street district. So Jillian asked me to talk about some of our newest initiatives, and most of them are coming from our research division. We're about ready to roll out a property inventory tool that can be right on the cell phone, so that we can manage those properties when developers come into town, looking for a space to go. We also have just purchased Placer AI, and that's all that secret tracking data that, you know, they know where you go, they know where you came from, and how long you spent to the downtown. So all of that is going to be available to our communities. We have our government relations team, as I said, doing our second Hill Day, and our former president, Patrice Fry, is working on a small deals initiative that she's trying to secure $100 to $200 million to provide funding for small scale projects in our small communities, anything that is under $5 million. We know there's money out there for bigger projects as well. So downtown's resurgence didn't happen by accident. It was people in Biddeford, it was people in Woonsocket, and people all across the country who are deciding that it's only going to change if we do something about it, right? So this is Ed McMahon, not Johnny Carson, Ed McMahon, but the Ed McMahon from the Urban Land Institute, who said people stay longer and spend more money in places that attract our affection, but no place in America will stay special by accident. So if we're not paying attention to it, we're not investing in our communities, it could happen. You know, we want to make sure that we are staying special. Downtowns are one of a kind places. I have been to thousands of communities across the US, and every place is different. Over the last 2 years, I visited every Iowa Main Street community. There are 55 of them. I think I run across the same kind of downtown out there, the farm country. They were all different. You know, one was Johnny Carson's hometown. One had an opera house that had concerts from all over the country. Another community that pulled together and built their own hotel because they didn't have a hotel. So there's a lot of work that is being done, and then just taking advantage of that. Our historic buildings, we want to make sure that those are protected in our communities. We want to make sure that we have great businesses in our district. I love Biddeford's business plan contest. Hey, we can open a coffee shop here, let's have a long-term relationship with you. I think that's very good. I saw one out in Nevada that said, they put a big sign on the front of this building that said the most eligible bachelor building. In downtown. So people are being very creative with that. And the events and activities, and we are gonna cover the 4 points this afternoon. That RC and Moonshine Festival, that's held in Belmont, Tennessee. There's a population of about 400 or 450 people, they draw 30,000 people one day for the RC and Moonshine Festival. It's really like right on a Dry Green today, like one side of the Main Street, but you know, when I went into one of the shops there, the antique shop, walked in the door, I was handed the bottle of RC. Well, what am I gonna do now? I'm not going right back out the door, I just spent about 15 minutes in there while I bring the RC and probably buy 10 things. So there's marketing going on in our district. We love our downtowns though for what they represent. There's really a symbol of your community, character and prosperity. It's the heart of your community, you know, if you've been to downtowns that don't look good, and you probably just keep driving right through them, but you also know downtowns that are great. And you wanna stop, and you wanna go back to those places and explore the businesses and the restaurants. But our downtowns also provide the affordable places for new entrepreneurs and businesses to start. They provide that in different sized buildings, et cetera, but people are seeking authentic places that are full of character, and that's the advantage we have with our downtown. You know, we used to have 25 shopping malls across the country. There's less than 800 now. So we win. Because that was our big competition back then, right? Was the shopping malls with all of our retail, and now it's swinging back to people want to be in downtown. We love our downtown because of the property tax that it represents, the job and business base. If you drew a map around your downtown and added up that property value, how many people work there, how many people live there, it is probably the highest economic generator for your community. So we should be paying attention to that. But working on revenues for businesses, increasing sales tax collection, and really tracking private and public sector support. We need the public sector to be investing to give that confidence to the private sector as well. And this is what one analyst said about the Main Street program is there is simply no more effective economic development program of any type on any scale anywhere in the country than the Main Street program. And this is why we could point to that. These are our stats since 1980. All of our coordinating programs send us information on how their communities did with new job growth, new business growth, volunteer hours, reinvestment by the public and private sector. So in that amount of time, we're over $101 billion in our communities, with over 300,000 buildings saved or rehabilitated, 746,000 new jobs, and 168,000 new businesses. As a matter of fact, during COVID, like about 95% of our Main Street districts reported a net gain in new businesses during COVID. That wasn't happening in non-Main Street communities, it was happening in places like where Delilah was, and that there's somebody in place still recruiting people, still talking to the community about supporting local. And we had phenomenal results during COVID. Probably the most important number that I want to talk about with this is that on average across the country, for every $1 that a community invests in a Main Street program, they're seeing a return on investment of over $30. So sometimes I visit communities and they say, oh, we can't afford a Main Street program. We can't afford to hire an executive director and run an office, it just costs too much. And I say, you can't afford not to have a Main Street program if you're going to get this kind of return on investment. So we have to put some money in to get the results from that. This afternoon, we're going to talk about the Main Street 4-point approach, but I did just want to show one slide with that, in that we have to have a comprehensive program to accomplish all this. Yes, we have to know how the district looks, feels, and functions. How do you feel? How does anybody feel when they come into your district? The organization has to be there. Where are we going to get the resources, people, power, and money to accomplish what we want? promotion is how do we figure out how to get more people coming to our districts and spending. And economic vitality is how do we support our existing businesses? How do we recruit new entrepreneurs? And look at new uses for those buildings in our district. We also have guiding principles for Main Street. Besides the 4 points, we do that. Okay, then try to just. So there we go. Thank you.
So, we have designated some time for questions, but, I want to keep to the schedule because I want to break, because I know you've been here for a while. So, we're gonna push the questions after the break, when, and I'll also push my remarks about how we're thinking about things here that I'm familiar as well, because I think if you hear me talk anytime, but our special guests are only here to speak. So the only thing I will say is that, that when we talk about being part of this Main Street program, for Rhode Island, we're proposing to serve as that coordinating entity, for the state. So as you think about how it works, the local, the coordination, and then the national organization, that's the part that we're talking about getting started here around. You have to start somewhere. So thinking that foundation would provide the basis to support all the efforts that happen at the local level, but we know there are so many out there. So with that, we're gonna take a 10-minute break. You can be back here in 10 minutes. That's 9:42.